Greetings. So I want to look at these plane wings. They're supposedly filled with fuel. We've heard the captains tell us on different channels that I've shown about this subject. They say they try to maintain fuel in the wingtips while the computer does it all for them, because some weight in the wingtips adds stability to the craft. Well, I really don't see much evidence for the fuel there. I think the fuel goes in there, but I don't think it stays there. I don't think it's stored there. Not in these thin little walls. It just doesn't seem like a safe way to do it. It doesn't seem like anyone's really worried about it. And we've seen inside the wings that where they fill it up, there's a tube, and the tube runs up into the middle of the plane and probably up near the upper tail section somewhere, which would make sense.
Keeps fuel in the outer wing for wing bending and flutter relief, and supplies information on the ECAM and cockpit indications. The left and right wing tank and the center tank. The wing tanks are further divided into a inner tank and a outer tank. The total usable fuel capacity is 23,858 liters or 6,302 US gallons on the Airbus A320 model. The minimum temperature for Jet A1 fuel is minus 43 degrees and a maximum of plus 45 degrees.
If it used a lot less fuel, it would be right up there around that APU unit, which is actually the thing that starts up when the plane starts. So you would have the fuel there. Perhaps especially when it's airborne. Now here they have one of these, they're called Gaylords, these things that it's 1,000 liters capacity, and the guy was dumping in something by hand. It wasn't absorbing the fuel. I mean, they would need how many dozen of those? When they have 30,000 liters, you know, they need several dozen of them for draining off the fuel from one of these crashes, the unburnt fuel. If it's a crashed landing, it would be less, of course. But when it's a takeoff, we're told ostensibly that if the takeoff isn't going well, then before they would crash, the pilot automatically is going to do a fuel dump. But I don't think so. And then here with this Taiwan crash, there wasn't any evidence of fuel in the wings, and that was a takeoff, I believe. And there's no evidence of the fuel oil in the water, and they don't seem to be worried about fire. Then there's this fighter jet that crashed into a warehouse in California, and there's no evidence of any fire from that. It didn't fuel dump. I doubt that it fuel dumped, unless that's part of the ejection process. But there's no evidence of that, and there would still be some residual fuel. There was not really any fire. There's a photograph coming up that shows a really high-def view of the crash scene, and you can see there's some smoldering coming up, probably from where the hot engine was, because it does create heat. You see and feel that heat. I have, being close to one of these things, and it has a lot of power, but how much of that comes from fuel? I don't know. But when they do these crash tests, these are NASA crash tests, and boy, do they make them explode. So if you remember, I don't know that many of you would, when I first started watching the news, one of the things they were talking about was this.
The story includes footage demonstrating that a line of trucks produced by General Motors readily explode on impact.
To see for ourselves what might happen in a side impact crash, Dateline NBC hired the Institute for Safety Analysis to conduct crash demonstrations.
It up in the air, and it would roll over. Anyway, they did a crash test, and they wanted it to ignite, so they had these incendiaries to make sure that it would ignite and burn for a fiery crash to make it more dramatic. Well, I think that's what they're doing here.
Unlike GM tests, the fuel tanks were filled with real gasoline. Look what happened. At impact, a small hole was punctured in the tank. According to our experts, the pressure of the collision and the crushing of the gas tank forced gasoline to spew from the gas cap. The fuel then erupted into flames when ignited by the impacting car's headlight.
After the program airs, one of the firemen at the taping of the crash contacts GM. The conversation inspires a full-scale investigation. 3 months later, NBC is forced to reveal their role in fabricating the news.
NBC's contractor did put incendiary devices under the trucks to ensure that there would be a fire if gasoline were released from the truck's gas tank.
We said the crash, quote, forced gasoline to spew from the fuel cap, end quote. GM says since the gas cap was the wrong cap for the GM filler tube, and because the gas tank was overfilled, the cap came off when the impact occurred.
We agree with GM that we should have told our viewers about these devices.
The Dateline reporter, however, said, quote, at impact, a small hole was punctured in the tank, unquote. GM has now x-rayed that tank and found no hole.
We acknowledge the placing of the incendiary devices under the truck was a bad idea from start to finish.
That's our new policy, and we'll be right back.
And they have these planes so loaded with fuel. Of course, again, this is NASA doing this. Why would NASA be interested in crashing these planes? And why is it that everybody has seen this footage? It's because you're meant to see it. And what were you meant to see? Is it just to make you feel bad and have negative vibes and they feed off of that somehow? Quite possibly, that's part of it. But it also is part of this project or operation that was in place that led up to some event having to do with New York City and whatnot. And they wanted to make sure that in the public conscience, everybody could call up images to say that there's fuel in the wings and see it spilling out and see it ignite. And it's so super dangerous and such of a flying bomb. What they don't worry about is the fact that, you know, they want you to think, well, look, these aluminum wings are cutting right through these utility poles, you know, but it's like, well, wait a minute, the utility pole is kind of cutting through the wing, and a utility pole is quite different from steel and concrete. But anyway, there's another one coming up. This one, I'm not sure if it was NASA, but it's the same group. It's all the same. But they have these different colors, and then in different images of it, instead of the colored powder or whatever it is, it's colored orange like flame, you know. So here's the NASA one. They make it look antique. You know, they period date their work. I don't know what these guys are controlling. He's supposed to be remote control flying the plane, but he's inside looking at screens. I'm sure they did remote control fly it, but they have these pylons here that are meant to shred it. But also they have like little flares on them, which you'll see. Well, there are no chemtrails in the sky. They were too busy doing this stuff. They hadn't started chemtrailing yet. They did have traditional pollution though. Like the smog was really heavy. But see how the plane is leaving a smoke trail? Like it was. Did you see the black exhaust behind the engines of the plane? I noticed that. I've seen it a few times with smaller planes and some helicopters, like at an air show. I saw a lot of it. They use fuel in excess. See that fuel exhaust coming out of the back of the plane? You don't see that nowadays. That's not just turbulence. That's not just water moisture from the turbidity of the air, you know. That's actual fuel. That thing is so loaded up with fuel, and then it's set off, I think, upon the crash. And look at all this fire. My gosh. They really wanted to get the point across. I believe they also painted up the skin of the vehicle with something flammable. Yeah, see all the smoke behind it? That you don't see that normally with a plane coming into land. It's burning excess fuel, you know. It's burning fuel when it doesn't need to burn fuel. It's just so laden with fuel. And then there are these flares. They're dead giveaways. So they have like rocket flares attached all over the place. They're firing off. They're meant to go off like flare guns, basically. They're charged and they spin out of control. But yeah, see the exhaust? You don't go to any airport, you don't see a black smoke, burnt carbon monoxide and exhaust trail, you know, like a semi-truck or something would leave. They burn clean and they don't burn much. And certainly when they crash, they do not burn like this.
Different kinds of fuel. This is jet fuel. The reason I made this video is because I don't like the myth that jet fuel is so flammable and so exotic and so dangerous. So I got all the different fuels. We can compare them all. This is jet fuel, Jet A. So those of you that have that 737 sitting in the backyard, you'll use, and propane, which you use to heat your house and cook your barbecue. So let's get started. We're gonna see if we can catch any of these on fire. All right, so first on the docket is jet fuel. I was actually surprised when I started doing this at how many different colors there are of the different fuels, but jet fuel is totally clear, as you can see. I'm not seeing any color. Some people say it has a straw color if you look it up on like Wikipedia or something like that. Let's open this up. All right, and let's do this. It just goes out. Let's put another one in. Try it slower here. Remember, this is jet fuel. Same thing they put in the Boeing 737s, Airbus A380. Okay, got that match burning nice and slow in there. And nope, it just quits. All right, let's try a different method. All right, you probably can't see the flame on there, but you can probably hear it. There we go. That's kind of cool. There's thermals in there, but it's not burning. Not burning. Flames right in there. Okay, try spraying a little bit of jet fuel. Atomized, individual atoms. Okay, that's what makes it flammable. But yet, when you don't, it doesn't do this.
And even that wouldn't be sufficient to do what happened in New York City, for example, on that day. That's just completely nonsense different. Completely nonsense different. It's like, it's not just apples and oranges, it's everything. It's different about it. It's not even fruit and fruit. But yeah, that thing lights up. It barely impacts, it's already lit up. I already slowed this down and looked at it, and you can see the little flares and the little sparks of light firing off just as soon as it is possible for anything to start to break from any impact. If it were that easy to light up, these things would go off just on a hard landing. It's total bullcrap. And diesel just doesn't burn like that. And I say diesel, and you say, well, no, don't you know it's Jet A? All right, look. It's Jet A is similar to kerosene, is similar to diesel, okay? They're almost all the same. The differences are slight. It's like saying 89 octane and 93 octane. But yeah, these things are just painted up with like some kind of gunpowder infused thermite paint, and you'll see they're just so ready to burn, it's insane. And they're leaving this, the thing can barely take off, it's so weighed down with all this fluid. And look at the black exhaust trails coming out. That is not normal at all. Total nonsense bullcrap that they're doing here. Okay, and then there's the chase plane. That's what's actually remote control flying it. That business they showed at the beginning with these guys in this room with no windows looking at screens with a joystick, that's theater. The chase plane is how they actually do it. That's how they fire missiles, you know, when they do a demonstration of a missile, like a homing missile or whatever. They're, using remote control, and they have to fly right behind the missile with a chase plane or jet, because the remote control operation doesn't work very far away. It's just like any remote control you've used, same thing. And so they have to do it like this. And when you think about these really distant things like the drones and things that they're supposed to be controlling from super far away, it's nonsense. And then especially when you talk about fake space, the distances involved are just, well, astronomical, and that means bullcrap, impossible. But yeah, so they have this to show you how mega ultra explosive it is. Now this thing is wrapped with these black straps that are like
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
gunpowder, like fuse type things that burn. Like in the movie Die Hard, I don't know if it's 3, the guy, John McClane, played by Bruce Willis, lights this trail of Jet A that follows up behind the plane and lights it off. And of course that movie was put out before 9/11 because it was meant to teach you that these things are so flammable. I mean, look at the outside of the skin of the craft is burning. See, that's what those black lines were for. There's no reason. Why would NASA, this is the NASA test, why would NASA be doing this? Are you telling me that the outside of the skin of the vehicle is going to burn, and then there are all these explosions and things flying off? Because, like I said, it's like coated and wrapped in gunpowder. It's literally, they made this huge, expensive, polluting, giant flying bomb. And they filmed it to produce out to people so that they would accept whatever happens in 2001 that was planned. That's absolutely, I'm beyond, it's beyond conjecture. It's like, it's a theory. It's risen to the level of a theory because it's not a mere hypothesis. It's not conjecture. It's not a guess. There are only a few sensible explanations, and it all fits together this way. And as typical with NASA, they have these long periods of boring footage. They just don't care to edit it out because they really don't want the viewer to be thinking about it. They either try to move really fast so you don't have time to think, or they move it slow and boring, and they make you just become like hypnotized and just accepting of, you know, if they can stand this kind of boredom with this type of stuff, then, you know, I'll just grant them the benefit of the doubt because they're just so bored anyway that you don't want to think about it anymore. You're done. You're just like, I don't care. But look at the wings. They're painted up. It's painted up in like gunpowder. So these pylons that they hit, they must be like electrified, and it just ignites, and there are these orange burning things flying up. It's and then the fire just climbs along the skin of the wings, and it just moves right on up. There's so much flame. It's ridiculous. Look at all that fuel. Look at all that fire. Give me fuel. Give me fire. Give me that which I desire. Because they're planning the events of, I guess it was summer in 2001, not quite fall. And yeah, see the flame, it crawled up the wing. It's just a ridiculous amount of flame. What are they even, who are they kidding? Is this what everybody thinks? You know, when you talk about this fuel hoax, do they think that there is that amount of fuel in these passenger planes that take off every day? You know, they load them up with that much fuel, that much energy. I mean, it may approximate the amount of energy expended. That's what's so amazing about how it actually works. The planes are not nearly as heavy as they say, though. But it still takes a lot of energy to move these big planes around. They do it, and they don't use that much fuel. That's ridiculous. Look how black it burns. That's not Jet A. Jet A wouldn't burn like that. That's from gunpowder, I think. And whatever else they have going on there. I mean, I don't know, but what NASA's involved with here, supposedly. It would be fun to do. I grant them that. It does look fun. Roger, Houston, we've got a big problem here, boy. Kind of looks like a truck driver keeps shifting gears, you know. Breaker 19, I got some information. We got some fuzz down on Route 19. We got to holler out to our compatriots so they can watch out, keep an eye out for the fuzz, man. Over and out. He's going to be over and out soon. He's flying a passenger plane filled to the brim with fuel. There's probably fuel in the nose cone. I think there is, because, yeah, see, this flame comes up in front of it. He's crashing, and then just flames come out everywhere. He keeps shifting gears. You know, he's over the top. He's a guy from over the top. He's on his way to an arm wrestling tournament, driving his semi. He thinks he is. Keeps shifting his gears. I need to arm wrestle my kid back into my life. Oh, crap. You know, and then now, look. The front of it's burning. Like, right below the glass, it's burning. Maybe it turned around, but still. It's just insane. They really wanted to get the idea across that it is flammable. Look at that. Look at the stuff shooting out. He's got to go arm wrestle the guy who drinks the motor oil and over the top. This is over the top. This whole crash. With the amount of fire and flame and everything is completely over the top. It's the NASA minions, the globe heads, swaying to the music of the planets. Oh man. Have you ever heard one of those music albums that is like the sounds that are made by different planets or stars, and it's just sick. I think like the only worst sounding thing, well, gosh, there's a lot of bad stuff out there, but there was an album of whale sounds that was better, way better than the album right next to it at my friend's house that I went to a lot when I was a kid. His mom bought these weird albums of like ambient stuff, and the planets songs, it wasn't like symphonic, you know, like where they theme it after the planets or whatever, which is actually after these like lowercase g gods, you know. But oh wow, the flames coming right in to the cabin, you know, it's just so much fire and flame and fuel and freakish fire and fire everywhere. They have all these fire trucks and things at airports, which makes sense, you know, but they probably don't even need the extent to which they have them. Who knows? Let's hope not, but this is ridiculous. Like, I know that there is not this much fuel on these flights. There's just not. And you saw the crashes earlier. There's no evidence of this kind of flame. Who are these geeks? They're like the Gleeks. The Gleeks, you know, that sang with Chris Hadfield and the guy from Bare Naked Ladies.
Scenery looks a little nicer than ours.
That stupid song.
Yeah, have you got everything you need? Do you have your trusty floating guitar pick with you?
What, ISS or whatever it is.
Gleeks, are you guys ready to do this?
Yeah! Oh, man. And they don't even wonder about how he's supposed to be up on the space station. There's no delay. Hey, you got your trusty pick? Yeah, I got my pick right here. Well, thanks. I figured you'd have it. Yes, and I know it can be scripted ahead of time. They time it that way, but it's just really phony. It's just too obvious to me that the one guy's like pointing to the other one. You know? Save me! The one guy must be Space Force. Save me, Space Force! I'm going to bury my head behind your back. Oh my gosh, everything's burning. Just fire everywhere. Like, they put oxidizers in it, I think, because you almost can't even get that much flame from the ambient oxygen in the air. It's like so much combustion. It's ridiculous amounts of combustion. I really do think they put oxidizers in there. It's like hell, you know. Like, it's meant to make you feel bad, but you don't have to feel bad. I'm just presenting it to you to laugh at it, because it's like, come on. Can you believe that we didn't notice this before? All the planning? Oh, some of us did, I guess. I can't speak for everybody. You know, I had some suspicions, and I noticed some things that were off, some things that were incongruent, but I didn't have the mindset to be able to take that leap forward and say, you know what, they would lie about something that big, and it could be a lie, and then looking into it. Well, thank you for looking into UAP channel, and hopefully you have a good one. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.